Hey there, Chiro friends. Frank Sardella here. Will Work for Patients, episode 31. Today, we're going to talk about what is your biggest problem in practice. How about hiring? Today, my guest is an absolute personnel expert for chiropractic practices who really knows her stuff. And I know this firsthand because it's my wife, Monika. So join me today when my guest, Monika Sardella, is going to tell you how to do the impossible. Hire a CA. Today's episode is called Hiring CAs That Don't Flake. Episode 31 coming at you. Here we go.
Thanks for tuning in for another episode of Will Work for Patients, a free advice podcast dedicated to help chiropractors get on purpose and grow their practices. Get ready to tune in and turn up the volume of your practice marketing. And now, turning up the volume on his mic, big-time chiropractic advocate and your host, here is Frank Sardella.
All right, my good friends. Yeah, that's me, Frank Sardella here, Will Work for Patients, and I am really ready and raring to go. How about that last episode, episode 30? Did you get your CA to listen to it? And did you get your CA to listen to it repeatedly? If not, you should. And you know what? You should be listening to it again too. Now, today I want to continue that theme of CAs. I've been really listening to you. I listen to every word you say to me in your phone calls, your emails, all of our conversations, and I absolutely know that this is an even hotter topic than what we did last time. So I really want to get into this today. I told you I have a guest. My wife, Monika, happens to be the personnel director of quite a large practice. She's in charge of 70-plus staff, and she is in charge of hiring and managing the personnel there. Many of you can't even manage one CA, much less 70. But I wanted to have her on the show today because you know what? Every day when I sit down to dinner, I hear about her day and I hear about what's going on. And it sort of finally clicked about all the stuff I hear from you. And I said, you know what? It's brilliant. So I asked Monika to be on the show, so she's here with us today. Monika, say hello.
Hello.
Okay, everybody, this is Monika Sardella, and we're going to get right into it. Monika, first, before we get into my questions, I want to just have you give everyone a little bit of background on yourself, like about how long you've been doing this. And I happen to know that you've done almost every post in a chiropractic office. So tell our audience a little bit about yourself and a little bit about what you've been doing in chiropractic and your experience up until now, and just lead us into what you're doing now.
Okay, well, I've been in chiropractic for over 14 years now, and I think over the years I've done a little bit of everything. I mean, I started probably like most other CAs do. I started as a front desk receptionist, just greeting patients, answering phones, scheduling. I worked for a very small office, and now I graduated to a really large office. We are one of the largest offices, and I've done everything from training staff to a little bit of billing. I've done marketing. I've done going outside and doing screenings, social media, everything from running a call center and a whole patient reactivation team, handling the floor CAs and doing, medical assistant type of positions, making various calls, and like I already said, training, hiring, and things like that. So a little bit of everything.
Okay, well, I guess that gives a little bit of a background, and just so everybody out there doesn't get a little too overwhelmed by that, because it's quite a long resume. Number one, she's not for hire, so don't get any designs on that. Just kidding a little bit. But one of the things that I wanted to add to that, folks, is that you should notice that here's a person who's been in this for almost 15 years and has done nearly every position in a chiropractic office. And I think, personally, from my experience, that people who have done multiple positions or know about multiple positions in a chiropractic practice actually can function better. We talked about last episode, as a matter of fact, episode 30, when we had a talk with the CAs. We were talking about how to be a super CA, and that you should not only get to know your own position, but get to know the other positions in the office and how they interact with you. How do you feel about the value of having done that?
I agree with you. It's definitely a plus if you have done various positions, because you're right, you can function better, and you could also be able to look at something from another position's viewpoint and not just think from your own little circle of what you're doing. You can see how it's affecting other positions around you and how they work together or don't.
That's absolutely right. And that sort of really drives home that point about making a super CA, where the person, by knowing the other positions in the practice and what their function is and also what they expect of you, this is how you forge a team and you make all your CAs work together. So that's actually outstanding. Monika, thanks for sharing that with us in terms of like your experience and whatever it really folds in to what we're trying to do. So I'm going to hit you with the heavy questions now, because most of the audience is sitting here with bated breath going, yeah, you're going to give me some advice. This is an impossible problem. We're not going to be able to solve it, but hopefully you can pull yourself up by the bootstraps here and just listen up for a few, because I really think we're going to tackle the issues today. So Monika, I'm just going to jump right in and ask you just point blank, as sort of a personnel or HR director in such a large practice, what is the biggest problem that you feel you face?
I think the biggest problem is first finding the correct staff members to join your company. When I say correct, I mean there's plenty of people out there looking for work. So finding the right person with the right qualifications for specific position that you're looking to put them in. And then once you find them, the challenge is how do you retain them? That's probably the biggest challenges.
You know what? I think you just hit the nail on the head with the challenge that everyone in this listening audience has. In fact, if I asked that question of all of you who are listening, you probably would have answered in the exact same way. So the next logical question is then, how do you approach hiring from that standpoint?
Well, the first thing that I do is I kind of figure out what kind of qualifications am I looking for a specific position. And then I formulate an ad that will reflect that. So not only do I put in the ad what position I'm looking to fill and what the duties are, but I also put in my ads what kind of characteristics or qualifications the person needs to have to even apply for that position. And then I post them in a few different areas. One of the areas that I personally like, and it's one of my favorites, is a website called Indeed.com. You can either have free ads there or pay for them for better searchability. Then, once I get an influx of resumes, I, of course, screen through them first to see, based on what I see in front of me on paper, who I feel would be one of the better qualified people to actually call in for the interview. And one of the things that I personally like is I actually set up as a first interview a group interview. I have learned through my years that it saves a lot of time, and it actually plays a nice role for the group as well, because when you have a one-on-one interview, first of all, usually the people think they're the only one. And think about if you're interviewing 30 people because you have 50 resumes that are actually good, you're spending at least half an hour with each person. That's a lot of time that I unfortunately don't have.
That's a really good point.
Yeah, absolutely. So what I do is I do a group interview, and I let everybody know that there's a group interview. And right away you'll start to filter people out. Because when you set up a group interview and you send it out there to your people, you will see who is actually serious and who is not. If you start getting excuses like, can we change it for a different day? This doesn't work for me. I can't really do that. Well, how badly do they really want this position if they're right off the bat are coming up with excuses why they can't be there on time?
Right.
So that's like a key point that I look for right away in the beginning. Then once everybody shows up for the interview, it's a one-shot deal. I do one talk to everybody. I've had, I think my largest group was about 40 people at once. Wow. Which is a large group.
Yeah, I can't even imagine, 40
yeah.
people in an interview.
It was huge. So it took a little bit of doing. Obviously, I had helpers. But you basically do a group interview. I don't sugarcoat things. I basically tell them what I'm looking for, who we are, what we do. I do a little introduction. I also ask every single person interview what their name is, what their background is, what do they do now, or what kind of experience they're bringing to the table. So everyone kind of hears other people's answers. After the whole interview is over, I basically tell everyone that they are not obligated to stay, that if they feel like this position is not for them, I will not be offended if they don't hand in their application and just walk away. So that's totally okay with me. And believe it or not, some people will do that, and they will decide to walk out. Those that decide to stay, then I quickly take them in one-on-one for literally 2 minutes just to go over their schedules, to see when is the best time to call them in for possibly a second interview and things like that. So that basically handles my first interview. So I pretty much get a lot done in just one shot.
That's really brilliant. I actually want to back up and point something out. I love the group interview concept, and actually I think there are quite a few chiros who have caught on to that idea, but there are many who haven't, and I think that's important. But there was something you said before you even started the interview process, before you even posted your first ad. You said something about defining the ideal qualities of the candidate for the position you're looking to fill. Did I have that correct?
Yes.
Please elaborate on that for our listeners, because I really think it sets a precedent or something like that. So can you expound on that a little bit?
Absolutely. Let's say I'm looking for a position for a marketing CA, someone that actually goes out and does screening. It takes a specific person to be able to do that. So I put that out there, that these are the qualifications that I'm looking for. Are you a person that's upbeat, that loves to talk to people, that is not afraid to speak to strangers? Are you able to go out in public and stop people and speak to them freely? Are you a person that's willing to help people? Are you able to stand on your feet 8 hours a day? Are you able to stay upbeat no matter what happens during that day? Are you able to handle quotas? Are you self-motivated? Things like that. I put that in there because these are the qualifications I need. So if somebody is shy or doesn't know how to work with quotas or statistics, it's probably not the right position for them because they will fail. And I will be wasting my time as well.
One thing I want to point out, listeners, that if you're not sure who you need in the position, you're going to be randomly stabbing in the dark looking for people, but are you really sitting down and defining those qualities for yourself in detail that you want for the person? Not just for the listing, but just for a decision in who you're looking for. So it's not so random. Now, do you find that doing that actually makes a difference?
It does, because taking the office that I work for as an example, we are a very fast-paced office, and we are a very busy office. So unlike a lot of the other chiropractic offices, people generally that come for the interviews have an idea of what a chiropractic office is like based on their own previous experience, which is not necessarily what our office is like. So I stress that in my ads. I put in there, this is a very fast-paced office and a very busy office. You need to be able to have good control over people, be able to put good control in a chaotic environment. I put key phrases in there to kind of give a person an idea of what I'm looking for. So if they're reading the ad and they look at that and they say, you know what, I don't work that well in fast-paced environments, they might not answer that ad because it'll automatically filter them out. If they don't do well under stress like that, they're probably not going to send in their resume.
That makes a lot of sense. Tell me something. I could say, what do you look for in a good CA, but you've already given me a whole list of qualities. So why don't you tell us this? What do you think in hiring is the most important quality you're looking for in a CA, if you had to pick one?
Probably the willingness to work and help people.
That's a big one.
It is, because you can teach a person anything as long as they have the willingness to learn. So that's really what's important, and that's what I noticed in my experience makes a good CA.
If you look at it, it sums up all of the other categories. I couldn't ask for a better answer than that. You mentioned how once you start posting the ads, you talked about Indeed.com, which I like a lot. What are some of the other ways that you look for or seek and find staff?
I also look in the local colleges. We have a local college that's actually in the same town that we are located in, so I post ads with them. I actually do job fairs as well. We do them twice a year, and I go to them. I gather a lot of resumes through that, and what's interesting about a job fair, you get to see the people in person. So you right away not only get to get a resume in your hands, but you meet them face-to-face, and you see what their expressions are, what their body language is like, what their personality is like, which is very important. You get to see that all in one shot. So that I definitely recommend for anybody to attend any local job fair around in your area as well.
I actually agree with you 100%. As a matter of fact, I just came off a short tour to Nashville, and I placed a call for a client to a local college that was right in his town. And listen, I was actually pleasantly surprised to find that when you talk to somebody who's in charge of careers or job placement at, especially a community college, how willing they are to work with you and how grateful they are even to hear from you. This particular experience I just had, and Monika, maybe you've had an experience like this, the woman was not only like elated to have heard from me, but she actually asked me for a very detailed, specific job posting and told me that the job postings are absolutely 100% free. So
yes.
That was like an unlimited resource to have somebody working for you. It's like a free employment agency at that point, isn't it?
Absolutely. And another thing that schools do, a lot of times their students are looking for internships, especially if they're doing any form of studies in that field.
That's a good point.
Perfect, which is really perfect because they either need observational study or some kind of an internship that gives them hands-on experience. And for you, that's great because if you are looking for any type of extra help around your office, something that's maybe more part-time than full-time, and as we know that a lot of people looking for jobs out there would prefer full-time than part-time, so internships actually come in very handy. This is a great way for you to actually utilize that because if they're good, and they enjoy working for you and they learn a lot, they could be good candidates to actually become your employees.
Monika, thank you for that. And, how inspiring is that really to hear that this is a possibility? Because I'll tell you, Monika, maybe you can quickly comment on this. One of the things that I get from most of the docs that I've talked to in their frustration is not only like the bad candidates they're getting, but where they're getting them from. Like I get a lot of talk about, I'm not using Craigslist anymore. As a matter of fact, I just heard that today. I'm not using Craigslist anymore. I just keep getting very flaky candidates, people who are either flake out before they start or they start and they flake out within a few days. So it's actually refreshing to hear about a source where you have somebody in there pitching for you. So I think that's great. Monika, tell us the best employee you ever found and hired. Do you have like a best experience you can tell us about?
I had an employee that was so upbeat during the interview and so eager and had such great eye contact, which, by the way, is very important.
Sure.
Eye contact tells you a lot, and so willing to work. And then once the person got hired, she was just able and willing, and anything you threw at her, she was able to handle, and she was also always willing to give advice or do anything from her viewpoint to help out. It was a great employee and never complained about staying late or working long hours or going that extra mile for you to make things right for the patient, as well as for the doctor, because you're always trying to make it work both ways. So, yeah, I definitely had some great employees in the past.
Do you remember what source you used to get her?
I believe she came from Indeed.
You heard it right here. So let's try Indeed, folks. Monika, now I'm going to flip that coin a little bit. This is a little tougher one, but describe your worst nightmare hire.
Worst nightmare hire. I've actually broken up fights, physical fights between people. Yes, you heard me right.
Like fist fights?
Absolutely. I think my worst one was slender, petite female and this really big male. They were ready to punch each other. And I literally walked in at the right time, stood right in between them, had to physically separate them.
Wow. And
take them outside. Of course, I got some help because I couldn't take both at the same time. So we had to take them outside. Talk about a lot of wasted time and energy.
Yeah, that's unbelievable.
And we are adults, supposedly.
Supposedly, yes, that's right. Well, we're trying to concentrate on the positive, and so far you've given us a lot of really, really great advice. By the way, thank you for all the information that you've given us about that. We found it very, very helpful. What would you say to someone who's having problems retaining staff?
So that is a very good question. One thing I would say is it all starts with the hiring. Never sugarcoat things. And what I mean by that is I'm very upfront when I tell somebody about a position or about what it takes to actually make it in our office. I will let them know we try to have fun, try to make it a nice, fun atmosphere for everyone, but it is hard work. I'm not looking for somebody that's just going to try and, quote-unquote, put in their time here and get paid. I'm looking for someone that's actually going to work, go that extra mile, meet quotas, meet targets. And if that person is able to do that, then you will be a good addition to our team because then you'll be moving our team forward. And I don't sugarcoat that to them. I explain to them that, especially in our environment, because it's a busy office with a lot of people and personalities, it's not always fun. People come in, they're in pain, they might be in a bad mood. You have to be able to handle that correctly and be able to handle stress well. And if you're not able to do that, this is probably not a good environment for you. So I don't sugarcoat it. And I think that's important because at least it kind of makes it real to them of what the expectation is.
To elaborate on that, the sugarcoating is more like the philosophical ideal versus like what actually can be. And I think that's an important thing. Even when we had Kathy Mills-Chang and we were talking about compliance issues, Kathy was talking about the ideal, but when she goes into a practice, she finds like an existing scene going on, and what's existing is not even near the ideal. So you have to really get down and sort of roll up your sleeves and say, look, this is how it really is on the ground here, and this is what we're shooting for. And Monika, you can tell me if you agree with this or not, but I think that's very important because it sort of gives a person a very real starting point that they can relate to and sort of make their own decision about whether they're in or out. But if they're in, then you're able to present them with the ideal and have it be more a goal or something to shoot for so that they can grow in the position.
Absolutely. One thing that I didn't mention, but I think that actually is important as far as retaining the employees that you hire is before you hire them, give them a hands-on trial, which is what I do in our office, regardless of what positions are being hired for. And what I mean by a hands-on trial is I literally tell them after the first interview that if I feel they have the qualifications or have what it takes to actually come back for a second interview. The second interview is a hands-on. That means I will put them in that position for a couple hours, and they will literally do that position. And that works both ways. On one hand, it shows me whether they can or cannot do it, how they react in that position, and whether what they said in the first interview actually, when put to the test, is what it is. And for them, it literally gives them an experience and a chance to see in real life what the position is like, not just based on what I told them and what kind of a picture they get in their head about it, but to actually do it and see it. And I think that's very, very important because at the end of that interview, I asked them, what did you think? How do you think you did? Can you see yourself doing that for 8 hours a day? Because if the answer is no, let's not waste anybody's time here anymore. Like, you're done. And it's good that at least they are able to say that, you know what, this is not for me, regardless of how much you're going to pay me.
Yeah.
And at the same time, it's for me to see, are they able to do that position?
How many doctors have wasted even months' worth? The standard trial period is like 90 days. That's 3 months. When you go through 3 months with a person only to find out it's not going to work out, and then what happens? You have to start all over again. You have no CA for a little while you're finding one. Then you have to train one, get them going for another 90 days, and you stop hiring. And so on. It's this vicious cycle. And how many clients do I have? How many of you docs that haven't been clients of mine have had that experience? I know it's a lot of you because I hear it all the time. So up to this point, you've decided very specifically who you want in the position, and you've really detailed it out, what the position is about, what qualities you want in the candidate. You go for all the choice ways of promoting for those people that you can, and you line up a group interview, weed out all the immediately disinterested people by both the advertisement and then, of course, the group interview, showing them who their competition is and all that kind of great stuff. And then second interview, one-on-one, looking for those qualities, looking at individual personalities and picking and choosing on your own, and then putting them into that third interview situation where it's a working interview where they sort of get to try out the job and you get to try them out on the job, and both of you can both sort of reconvene and say, okay, let's move forward or let's not, based on very real, and when you talk about reality, I think that's the ultimate reality. If somebody gets to try the job out, it doesn't get any more real than that. The position isn't theoretical anymore, so that's brilliant. And that, I guess, would lead us into offering somebody the job, putting them onto a probationary period, and then training and get them trained up for that position. So once you do make the offer to them, what are those terms? You have a trial period and you should have training. So why don't you just tell us real quick a little bit about what the terms are of the probationary period or trial or whatever you're calling it, and then what you do in terms of really training staff.
We do have a 90-day trial period, so we do that, and we also do training, which is very important because a lot of times I've noticed that it's easy for us to assume the person kind of knows everything, where in reality they don't. They definitely need a lot of training. So some of the trainings we do is first basic computer training on our system. Typically it'll take a person 1 to 2 days, depending on how quickly they pick up. That's just to kind of show them how to go around the computer, how to use the programs, how to schedule, where to find certain things. And again, that will be tweaked based on their position as well and what they actually have to use depending on their position. Not everybody needs to necessarily know the same type of information. And then it's training for their position specifically. Like there's the whole write-up. It'll basically go over what the purpose is of their position, what is the product of their position, what are the statistics of their position. We make sure that every post in our company has statistics that we can monitor. We don't go just by what people say. We actually go by looking and observing and inspecting what their production is all about. So we have written job descriptions for every position that we have in a company, which goes into the details of what is the purpose of that position, what is the product of that position to be attained, and what are the statistics on that position, so that way we can monitor, and they can monitor themselves as well.
So in other words, you do exactly what you said to do when you set out to look for the candidate. You define the ideal sort of qualities that you're looking for in the person for the position, and you identify the key points of the position. Now you're identifying all the specific details of how the job should be done in a perfect setting.
Believe it or not, it all starts actually, if you think about it, from the hands-on interview. Just as a quick example, I just recently did a hands-on interview for our call center. So the hands-on interview had 3 or 4 girls that were the finalists. Again, it's almost like another group hands-on trial. They all came in. I put them all at their desk. I gave them from the position description, just like the main page, which went over the purpose of that position, the product, and the statistics. And I told everyone that each one, in order to stay in that position after 90 days, has to be able to reach their quotas of 150 calls a day, so many contacts, so many appointments, so many kept appointments a week, and so forth. And then I put them to work. I gave them 2 hours, and I said, here's your list, here's your script. We drilled the script for a little bit. And then we put them on their phones. I make it fun, but I also let them know this is what it takes. And at the end of the 2 hours, I see, who got how many appointments, how do they do, how do they sound on the phone, how are they able to handle objections right away on the spot. Now, granted, they're not trained yet, so obviously I don't expect them to know everything. But I look at their qualifications. I look to see, are they able to think on their feet? Do they stumble a lot? Like, are they able to be personable? And by the time that 2 hours is over, they basically get an idea of what the position is like.
Tell me something. What's the average amount of people you put through that process to get one person hired for a position?
Quite a few, honestly. As a matter of fact, I probably have gone through, let's say, maybe 20 people to go through the hands-on trial before I hire one good one.
Wow. Now that is a shocker even to me. I was expecting something more along the lines of 5 people. So all you listeners, all you docs, I want you to really take note of that point right there. It takes way more than you think. And I'm willing to bet there's no one listening to this show right now who's ever taken it to 20. So Monika, that was a gem right there. I think that was worth the whole episode and just finding that out, because honestly, there's a lesson to be learned from that. And that's that you just have to keep insisting on getting the best candidate in there. So thanks for all that. It was extremely enlightening. So tell me something. What would be a parting piece of advice you would give to a doc in a smaller clinic, maybe that only has 1 or 2 CAs, or even a handful, or let's say under 10 staff, as far as like a really good piece of hiring advice that you feel they could just take to the bank and improve their situation?
My first piece of advice would be don't give up. There is the right CA out there for your office that will be a good fit for you, for your personality, for what you need in your office. So definitely do not give up. Just because the few you've interviewed are not the right ones doesn't mean that she doesn't exist, or he. So definitely don't give up. And second, before you even go out there and interview, you have to know what you're looking for. You have to have an ideal person in mind with the ideal qualifications and characteristics, and you have to put it out there so you know what you are looking for. It's kind of like what you mentioned earlier, the ideal scene versus the existing scene. Look at what you have, what doesn't work, and look at in an ideal scene, what would that person be like? What kind of characteristics would she or he have? Write them down, name them out, and then go get them.
Really, really great advice, and I think a lot of people are going to take that to heart. Monika, I really think you helped a lot of people today. I know this is a real hot button right now, and I know that you feel them on it because you're in the trenches every day doing it. And folks, I just want to point something out again if it wasn't abundantly obvious. Monika has to do what you're complaining about. Monika, how many times a week or a month are you in the hiring mode?
Quite a lot. With so many staff, there's always something that changes, whether people go off to school or their schedules change
Exactly.
or they move. So it's definitely quite a lot.
Exactly. So I just want to point out that if she can do it, no. But, we're not going to get down to that. But the bottom line is it can be done. And I think that was really sound advice. Monika, thank you so much for being on the show today and taking the time out to do this. I know you're pretty busy. I personally know firsthand you bring your work home with you and are constantly doing this and answering emails. I hear you on the phone a lot, talking to candidates and things like that. Love to have you back on the show again because I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of demands. What I want to do is I would like to open up a line, if it's okay with you, to have people be able to maybe write and ask a question or two. What's a good contact point for you?
Probably email would be best because that way I could just email you back. Yeah, monika.screenings@live.com.
Monika.screenings@live.com. So it's Monika with a K, Monika .screenings, plural, SCREENINGS @live.com. And you can send Monika any questions you had on what she talked about today, and she'd be more than happy to respond. Of course, you can always write into the show, frank@screeningexperts.com, and I can always get a message to Monika, also answer a lot of questions. As far as more information on any of these topics that we talk about, the website is chiropracticmarketingadvice.com, and there you will find a blog full of articles on various things. You will soon see a blog article on today's interview with Monika. In fact, I'm going to ask Monika to give us some tips we can put in a blog article on the site, so please go there. And more importantly, under the podcast tab, you will find the most recent episode. You will find a list of all the episodes and all the ways you can subscribe, including in the iTunes store, where I recommend you not only download and subscribe, but you please rate us and write us a review. That helps out a lot with the show. We love to get your feedback. If you're on Android, you can download from the Play Store any free podcast app. You can find the show Will Work for the number 4 Patients. Search the show, subscribe, listen away. Your iPhone has a podcast app. So many ways to tune in and subscribe. Please listen and subscribe. We encourage you to do that. We do this show for you so that you can expand and grow your practice. That's what the show is here for. Now for the last word. Who gets the last word? I do. After all, it's my show. What should we take away from today's episode? If anything, I'd like you to take away one thing. That hiring staff, although it makes you want to give up, is not as hard as it seems if you just adhere to a few basic fundamentals. And you heard it from Monika today. Number 1 fundamental is don't give up. And if you feel like you want to give up, go back and listen to the earlier episode, somewhere around 17 or 19, which was when nothing seems to work, ... That entire episode is dedicated to you not giving up and you persisting. But more importantly, if you clearly define for yourself, before you even post an ad, what an ideal candidate would be and what the ideal functions would be for a job in an ideal universe, and you make a firm decision on those 2 things, I will bet you that your hiring process will go better than you ever imagined, and you'll be a hiring black belt just like Monika. And I not only wish that for you, but may you have a practice of that size and beyond. Isn't that a great thought? Monika, thanks so much for being on the episode. Thanks so much for being here.
You're welcome. Glad to be of help.
So, my friends, we've come to the end of a super epic episode. On behalf of myself, my staff, my guest Monika, I want to thank you all for tuning in, and we'll see you next time for another stupendous episode of Will Work for Patients. So long.
Be sure to subscribe and share. Will Work for Patients has been brought to you courtesy of Screening Experts, bringing unscripted simplicity to chiropractic marketing complexity. Today's episode, copyright Screening Experts LLC, musical score composed and arranged by Frank Sardella ASCAP. For more information, visit screeningexperts.com.